Today I'll be ranking and reviewing every donut from Stan's. I will give my overall thorough analysis on each donut, and then I will rank it out of 10. And at the end of this video, we will go through the top 5 donuts, the ones I most recommend you try out. So let's buckle up and head to Stan's to check out every donut they offer. Alright, the first donut we're checking out here is the chocolate sprinkled cake donut. One cute little detail about these donuts is that the colors of the sprinkles change depending on the season or the holiday that's going on. I saw them different colors for Valentine's Day, for St. Patrick's Day, for Christmas, as you can see here. Overall verdict on the cake donut is that it's got a nice rich butteriness to it, and it's indeed very cakey, true to name. One area I thought that this donut could have been better in is the frosting. Don't get me wrong, it's obviously there and it's cosmetically appealing and makes the donut look good, but I didn't taste that much chocolatey flavor from it. I was longing for that. It seems like the strong, cakey sort of richness from the donut itself overpowers any chocolate flavor you're really going to get from the frosting. So I could have used more of an actual chocolate punch from that, but the donut itself was very moist, like I said. Honestly, a good bite overall, but not really chocolatey in my opinion. With all of that considered, I would give this donut a 7 out of 10, solid, and I definitely didn't dislike this one, but I wouldn't get it again. The next one we're checking out is chocolate glazed. You can see this is a beautifully presented donut, and I actually found it to be really fluffy and light on the interior. It had an airiness to it that was really pleasant. You get sort of a Krispy Kreme-esque glazed donut underneath with the chocolate frosting on top, and then it's got the little drizzle on top. A nice sweet chocolatiness to this one, unlike the last one I reviewed, which I didn't feel like I got enough chocolate flavor. You definitely get that here. This had an addicting nature to it. I kept wanting to take bites of it. I finished the whole donut really quickly, so I think that speaks to it being a good donut. Texture-wise, it was right where it needed to be. It was not stale. But I did have one confusing thing kind of happen with my perception of this donut. The first time I tried it, I could have sworn I was getting the ever so slightest hint of like a toasted coconut sort of aftertaste. It was very subtle, but it was there to me. I wasn't sure if that was coming from the little white glaze on top of the donut, or if perhaps there was some cross-contamination going on from just touching another donut. For me personally, I do not love a coconut flavor, so it retracted from my overall enjoyment of the donut, but I wanted to try it a separate time, not even because it was the best donut I've ever had, but just because I wanted to see if that toasted sort of coconut flavor that was very subtle, but I was definitely detecting would show up again. And the second time I tried the donut, confusingly enough, I didn't taste that at all. So I'm thinking it might have been a case of cross-contamination, where the employee just touched another donut before touching mine, which is not a big deal unless someone has food allergies. With all that considered, I would give this one a 7.8 out of 10. I pretty thoroughly enjoyed it. If it doesn't truly have that coconut flavor, I can 100% vouch for it. You might hear that and say, I love coconut flavor. That's just something that I subjectively am not the biggest fan of. And assuming there's not a coconut flavor to this one, I would definitely get it again. Because like I said, it did have that nature to it that I wanted to keep taking bites of it. It was sort of addicting in that way. Next up, we've got Blueberry Old Fashioned. This was the last donut in the display. Their donuts sell out really quickly. I usually go to the one at Woodfield Mall, and you can see that the sign that they put identifying each donut, because this was the last one in the line, I got that one. So there's a little indentation there. There's also some cross-contamination from what looks to be like a sugar-coated donut. So evidence of that cross-contamination I was talking about in the last donut is showing up here again. Not the biggest deal. With respect to this donut itself, I thought it was very enjoyable. Being old-fashioned, it's going to be a crispy base donut. And that base donut to me had a nice, almost savory note. It wasn't actively very sweet because the frosting on top is very sweet. What I would say though is I didn't really pick up much of a blueberry vibe at all. I kept thinking, if you blindfolded me, would I think this is blueberry? And I don't think I would. There might be the slightest essence of blueberry in there, but I would have loved more blueberry flavor. I think there are places that do blueberry a lot more justice in their donuts, and I'm going to be reviewing a lot more local spots. I do think the old-fashioned base donut is very enjoyable, and the sweet frosting complements the not-so-sweet nature of the old-fashioned donut, and I love the crunchiness. It's a great texture. It's very addicting once again. But is it true to blueberry? In my opinion, no. So with all that considered, I gave this one a solid 7.5 out of 10. It falls into the category of ones I very much enjoyed, ones that made me want to try other old-fashioned varieties from Stan's, but I wouldn't personally spend my money on this one again. Up next, we're checking out the Biscoff Pocket. This is part of the Doughboys Best series from Stan, which I believe is their higher end donuts. They come at a higher price point, even above the specialty level, There is standard, specialty, and Doughboy's best at the very top. With that in mind, I will be extra critical if needed, so let's go ahead and take a bite of this one. Upon first bite, I thought this one had a nice light texture, a fluffy bite to it, and it's got an airiness to it that I actually found pretty pleasant. I'm assuming that the more tan brown frosting on this stuff that's sort of glazed over is cookie butter infused. I'm not getting too much cookie butter flavor externally. It's got sort of a standard glazed donut vibe in terms of the flavor. It's not overly filled with the cookie butter. That might disappoint some, but I found it to be the perfect ratio. The ratio to me is just right. Notice there's space in here. It's not filled to the brim with the cookie butter. At the same time, I do think that from a personal preference standpoint, the sweetness of the cookie butter and the sweetness, of course, from the glaze externally on this donut don't have enough distinction between one another to make this really satisfying. I think if the flavors countered each other a little bit more and brought out the strength of one another, this would be an all that much more satisfying donut. With all that considered, I would give this one a 7 out of 10. I thought it was really solid, but I don't feel the need to spend the money on this one again. It wasn't life-changing enough. Up next is the cinnamon sugar cake donut. There's not a whole lot to say about this one just because I didn't find it particularly unique or special, but it very much so was true to name. It was exactly what I expected it to be, and you get all of the elements of its name. You get the cinnamon, you get the sugar, and it was a nice moist cake donut that I definitely wanted to keep going back to. I had no issues with it, but it wasn't life-changing enough for me to want to try it again. This is another solid 7 out of 10, nothing wrong with it. Up next is the red velvet donut. Upon first bite, I have to say I was very wowed by this one. I'm not typically someone who loves red velvet or really sees the point of it, but this one was delicious and probably my favorite one I've tried so far. It had a great moisture internally. The frosting was delicious. It was very sweet, but it almost had the complexity of like a cream cheese without actually being like cream cheese-esque, if that makes sense. And it complemented the chocolate donut base, which I think is just dyed red, a la red velvet. I could be wrong about that. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But all those flavors work really well together. The moisture level is perfect. I gave this one a 9 out of 10 and would definitely get this one again. Up next, we're checking out the strawberry glazed donut. You can see that the one I got was a little bit beaten up. I got this near closing at the end of the day at Woodfield Mall. This was the very last one in the display case, but still I will say it retained a good amount of freshness once I did bite into it. Another thing I like about this, you can see if you look closely, there are actual strawberry seeds in the frosting, so it's coming from at least partially real strawberries, which can be appreciated. And flavor-wise, that comes through in the frosting. So in contrast to that blueberry old fashioned that we reviewed earlier in the video and I said I couldn't really get much berry essence, I actually did get a pretty appreciable berry essence in the frosting of this one. If you love a good strawberry glazed donut, you'll probably appreciate this one. I do think it is a good rendition of that classic type of donut. However, that's not my personal cup of tea, so I'm being rather subjective here, but I would give this one still a 7.4 out of 10, given that I would probably not get it again just because I don't love strawberry donuts, but I had no issues with this one. If someone were to give me one for free, I'd say, heck yeah, I'll eat that. Up next is the carrot cake donut. I tried this one out, and upon first bite, I was impressed. It seemed to have sort of a cinnamon bread-esque interior, which I found enjoyable, and some sort of crunchy topping on top in addition to a sweet frosting. I couldn't quite tell if it was cream cheese, as is traditionally the case on carrot cake. I didn't get a huge cream cheese vibe, but it was a nice sweet frosting, sort of similar to the one on the red velvet. My only slight complaint with this one is that it felt slightly dry internally, so I gave this one a 7.6 overall. I would probably get it again if nothing else caught my eye, but any day that red velvet is available and on the menu, I'm definitely getting that over this. Up next, we're checking out the Buttercream Bismarck, which does have a cream filling and an external chocolate icing. Upon first bite, I was pretty wowed by this one. The chocolate icing cut through the flavor really well. Some of the other chocolate flavors that I've had from stands, like I mentioned earlier in the video, I didn't get enough chocolate, but I did get that from this. The texture of the donut itself was a nice fluffy and light, sort of palatable texture. The cream on the inside was really enjoyable for me too. I found it whipped cream-like with a little bit of a custard flair to it. So true to name, I think the buttercream definitely comes through, and it is a nice flavor. It's not overbearing, it's not overbearingly sweet, it's like a good milky whipped cream. My one complaint with this is that it sits really heavy on the stomach afterwards. I definitely did not need to eat the whole thing, but I did in one sitting, and it definitely hit my stomach pretty hard. Even though it was palatable and light from a texture perspective, It was pretty heavy on the stomach overall. With all that considered, I gave this an 8 out of 10. I would definitely get it again, but knowing how heavy it sits in the stomach for me would probably be a deterrent in the future, but that can't really take away from the fact that it tastes very good and was a well-presented donut. Up next, we're in OG territory. We're checking out the standard glazed donut from Stan's. In my opinion, if a donut place doesn't do a basic glazed donut well, they're probably not worth going to at all. And what I will say about this one is that Stan's definitely does it justice. I think this is one of the better glazed donuts I've tried. It is certainly Krispy Kreme-esque, but it's got a nice fluffy internal texture, nice and sweet, with an ever so slight savory bite to the donut itself that definitely provides a vital contrast to the intense sweetness you're getting from the glaze. I think that is the essential thing that you need to have in a good glazed donut. There has to be a little bit of a savory note to the dough itself to offset the supreme sweetness you're getting from the glaze. Overall, I gave this one an 8.1 out of 10. I would get it again, and oftentimes this one is one they throw in for free, either through their app or certain days of the week you'll get it for free with the purchase of another donut. Again, I'm not sponsored by Stan's and I'm not trying to advertise for them, but if you can get a free donut, either download the app or get another one on a Friday when they're offering that promo. I don't know if it's every single Friday, but it has been multiple Fridays when I've gone there. Any donut purchase, you'll get a free glazed while supplies last, I believe. Up next, I have a series of 3 of the mini variety donuts from Stan's. Some of their same flavors they offer in standard donut size, they do make in miniature form, and I wanted to see if these were just a gimmick or if they're actually the same kind of level of quality as the big donuts. I got 3 flavors. I checked out the vanilla old fashioned, the lemon pistachio old fashioned, and the chocolate dipped. I'll say my personal favorite was the vanilla old fashioned. The old fashioned based donut has a really good and satisfying texture to me. It's got a little bit of a crisp. It is sweet but also a bit savory. It's really satisfying overall. The vanilla flavoring definitely contrasts that base donut well and makes for a really delectable bite. I gave this one an 8.3 out of 10. I would definitely order one of these again, and I like the fact that it's in miniature form because it's less calories and less filling overall. I tried another old-fashioned variety, that one being the lemon pistachio old-fashioned, and I gotta say I wasn't a fan. I was pretty sure going into this I wasn't gonna love it because I don't love lemon flavoring in general on baked goods. It's just not my cup of tea, and there is a pretty strong element of that here. It's a quality donut, but for me, this is a very subjective thing. I didn't love it. I gave this one a 5 out of 10. And the last mini donut I tried was the chocolate dipped. I thought this one was really good overall too. There's a nice internal moisture to the donut, a cakiness and a decadence to it, and the chocolate dip is a really satisfying flavor to me. You get a sweet, creamy, milky chocolate with a little bit more complexity to it. There's like a rich butteriness under that. I gave this a solid 8 out of 10. No complaints. Up next is the Emerald Dipped. I believe this is a St. Patrick's Day special. This is basically the chocolate dipped from what I could tell, and it was really enjoyable. I loved the chocolate dipped, and I really enjoy this one. I don't think the green coloring has anything to do with the flavor. It's just kind of a gimmick for the holiday, but the frosting is really sweet and it's very moist internally, really good and pleasing texture overall. I'd give this a solid 8 out of 10, just like the other chocolate dipped. Up next we have the chocolate old fashioned. I'm not gonna lie, the presentation on this one was a little rugged. I got the last one in the display and it had sort of the tag that they stick in the donuts, so it was a little beaten up. With that said, it was delicious. It seems like their old fashions are ones that I really tend to gravitate towards. The chocolate frosting is really sweet. It seems like the same kind of chocolate glaze slash frosting that they add to a lot of their other donuts. Sweet milk chocolate vibes, but the undercarriage of the donut has that old-fashioned crispiness that I love. At the same time, when you bite into it, it's very internally moist. The internal part of the donut has a sweet cakiness. The external crispiness has this almost cracker-like savory note to it. So to me, foods that I really love tend to have this trait where they're mixing sweet and savory, they're mixing textures, and you get that internal sponginess with the external sort of crispy cracker-like note mixed with the kettle corn sort of thing going on when there's sweet and savory at the same time. Very compelling overall. This is definitely one of my favorites. I'd give this a 9.1 overall. Up next, we've got another staple to the Stan's menu. This is the powdered sugar cake donut. which I have to say overall I thoroughly enjoyed. The powdered sugar gives it a almost chilling effervescence, which powdered sugar often does, and I find that really enjoyable. The donut itself has a good cakiness, a slight external crispiness, not in the sense that I think it's like an old stale donut, but just a slight change in texture. Like I said a little bit earlier in the video, I really like that complexity in texture, not just all chewy, not just all soft, a little bit of nuance and kind of contrasting things going on. I almost felt like I got like a 2% hint of muddled berry in the overall flavor. I could have been imagining that, but it seemed like that was just ever so slightly present to me. Overall, this is a good one, but probably the messiest donut on the menu. Do not wear black clothing when you eat this one. I speak from experience. Big mistake. With that said, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I'd definitely try it again. This next one is for all my vegan peeps out there. This is vegan cinnamon sugar. I have to say, unfortunately, they kind of let you vegans down here. The texture of this one is really noticeably different from the other donuts, and not in a great way. It's got this bounciness, but also a sandpaper-like texture. The external flavor is okay from the cinnamon sugar, but they really did not nail the texture of this donut. I don't think it's enjoyable, and I've had some delicious vegan treats before. I know it is possible, but unfortunately this one ain't it. 6 out of 10 overall on this one. I wouldn't try this one again. Up next, we've got the Boston Cream, a staple donut, but I have to say overall this one was kind of underwhelming. Nothing terrible about it, just pretty unremarkable overall. I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10, but I don't think I'd get this one again. Next up is the Green River Glaze. This is another St. Patrick's Day special. I was expecting it to perhaps have a lime sort of flavor, but I think the Green River is just reference to Chicago dyeing its river green and stands being started up in the Chicago area. I think it's just a vanilla glazed donut dyed green. Overall, it was kind of unremarkable. Not horrible, but really nothing special to me. I gave this one a 6.6 out of 10. Up next is the Chocolate Pocket with Nutella. This is one of their specialty donuts. And I have to say overall, this one was kind of a letdown to me. I didn't feel like I got any actual Nutella flavor. It just kind of tasted like generic chocolate frosting. It was fine overall, a little bit airy in texture. Pretty decent presentation. I gave this one a solid 6.8 out of 10. Wouldn't get it again. Up next is the Strawberry Bismarck. This has a sugar coating and a strawberry filling. I have to say this one blew me away. I was shocked at how much I liked it. I was expecting kind of an artificial strawberry jelly on the inside, a la Dunkin' Donuts, but what you get from the filling on this one is much more like pureed strawberries with a little bit of sugar added to it. Has a natural fruit flavor to it, but it's really, really delectable to be quite honest. The texture of the donut was good. My one complaint was that on first bite, I thought it was very unevenly dispersed, and then it exploded with the filling. That filling tastes great, but it could have been filled a little bit more evenly so that you get that filling on every bite. With all that considered, I gave this an 8.6 out again. I would definitely try it, and it's definitely one of the ones I recommend most. Up next, we're checking out the Vanilla Glazed Cruller. Weirdly enough, what I wrote down about this one is that it reminded me of the pina colada flavor of Dum Dum lollipops. I'm not sure if it's supposed to have coconut flavor, but I did get a hint of coconut in there. Overall, the texture was nice. I didn't love it overall. It really wasn't super memorable. I gave it a 6.8 out of 10. Nothing really wrong with it, but nothing that got me particularly excited. Up next, we are checking out a limited edition one, the Brown Butter Glazed with Caramel. I am a sucker for baked goods with brown butter flavoring. I think it adds a lot. And overall, this was great. I do kind of wish that it hits you over the head a little bit more with that brown butter flavor because I can't really get enough of that. I'm always left wishing that glazed donuts had a little bit more to the flavor, and this kind of takes you there. The caramel doesn't come through that much here, but I'm not mad about it because the brown butter is what I personally signed up for. I would have just liked a little bit more of it. Overall, it was a decadent donut, had great texture, good internal fluffiness. So I gave it a 7.6 out of 10 overall. I would get it again, but I was a little bit disappointed that it isn't more overbearingly brown butter prominent because I'm a sucker for that stuff. Last donut of this video is the plain old-fashioned. I figured I had to check this one out since I was a big fan of the old-fashioned donuts from stands in general, and this one did not disappoint. It isn't overly sweet as you might expect from it being a plain old-fashioned, but it's not flavorless. It's got like a vanilla wafer-esque essence to it. Again, like a good donut does, it combines opposites. There's some savory, there's some sweet, There's external crunchiness and there's internal sponginess. This one pairs great with a black coffee. It is an excellent coffee drinking donut for sure. The obvious score for this one, in my opinion, is an 8 out of 10. You can't go wrong with it, especially if you like something a little bit more subtle but nuanced. Alright y'all, now it's the moment you've all been waiting for, where we reveal the top 5 donuts of the video. But before we do that, if you have gotten to this point in the video, I humbly ask that you consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. I greatly appreciate the support in advance. But with that said, let's waste no further time. Coming in at 5th overall was the plain old-fashioned. 4th overall was the powdered sugar cake. 3rd overall was that strawberry Bismarck. 2nd overall was the red velvet. And just edging out the red velvet in 1st place was the chocolate old-fashioned. With that said, we are at the conclusion of this video. I hope you found it informative and helpful. And if you try any of these donuts from stands, let me know, did I get it right or was I way off? Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to chatting in the comments as always, and I'll see y'all in the very next video. Peace.